Hey everyone, what is going on? Just wanted to check in with you. I was not happy with how I left that Bootstrap grid from episode 14. It did not act the way that I expected it to act, so I did some research and I came up with some answers, and I wanted to share with you how this works so that you could understand how this thing works and use it in your projects. So let's jump into it. All right, let's jump right in. I am going to go into my projects directory, and I'm going to create a new folder just called test, where I can put some test code. And inside test, I'll create another folder, and we'll just call this Bootstrap grid. And that's just a little test area. I'm going to fire up VS Code because I have some tools installed there that makes things really easy for testing out HTML. And so if we go ahead and open the folder that we just created, which is in projects, test, Bootstrap grid. There are no files in here, but we'll go ahead and open that up and maximize this. I'm going to create two files with this file button. I'm going to call the first one index.html. I'm going to hit the file button again and do index.css. First thing you might notice that's different from your screen to mine is these icons. And that's because VS Code has so many cool extensions that you could keep yourself busy just checking out extensions. So for following along here, I'm going to click on the extensions icon here on the left, and I'm going to filter mine by installed. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that your filter is probably on most popular or featured. But I'm going to go built in. So one thing that you'll want to install if you want to do any C# in here is not that one. Oh, I'm on built in. That's why I want installed. There we go. So if I search for C#, you're going to want to put in this Microsoft C#. This will give you the OmniSharp plugin that will compile C# code in VS Code if you ever want to do any .NET Core. I think you need this, so get that. There are some C# IDE extensions that I have here that I kind of like. Things like right-clicking and creating a new C# class like it's showing you in the animation here. And then I have another one that'll sort usings at the top. So those are handy, not needed for today, but I just wanted to share that. The icons that I have are called Material Design or Material Icon Theme. So you can click on that and just click the install button. Mine only has uninstall because I already have it, but you just click install. And sometimes it'll ask you to restart with a button. Just hit that restart and it'll be installed. I also have the OneDark Pro theme installed here. I kind of like the colors that brings. There are a bunch of themes. You can pick the one you like. But the two that you need for today are really, one's called Live Server by Ritwick Day. You can see it's got 13 million installs, which is really cool. So go ahead and install that, and that will install a live server icon in the toolbar at the bottom. And the other thing that you're going to want is this HTML boilerplate by Sid the Sloth. This is really cool for just starting new HTML pages. It just kind of puts all this stuff in there for you, so you don't have to type it. You fill in one or two things and you're ready to go. I also have the HTML-CSS support, which is good stuff here. And I also have IntelliSense for CSS class names in HTML. So if you want, you can get those three to follow along. All right. So once you have those installed, we're going to go to our HTML page here. And if I just start typing HTML, you can see that I have my emit abbreviations and I have my HTML5 and HTML XML emit abbreviation. So if I just chose the built-in emit HTML5 and hit enter, it gives me a basic HTML document. And this is really all you need to start looking at a web page. The reason I like the other one better is because it also gives me script and CSS tags. So I'm going to not choose that one. I'm going to delete that. And instead, I'm going to use the HTML5 boilerplate from that extension. So there's a lot of stuff in here when I'm just playing around that I definitely don't need. You have some checks here that check to see if you're using really old versions of browsers. This checks for Internet Explorer 7 and 8. I'm not building anything that's going to ever support 7 or 8, so I just delete those. And this is just a little check that says if you're using a version of a browser that is less than IE7, then just give a message that it's really old and you should upgrade. I don't need that either. So the only things that are left that I need to type in are my style sheet and if I have any scripts. I am not going to have any custom scripts in this video. And my href for my style sheet is this index.css. So I'll go ahead and fill that in. And it gives me IntelliSense because it sees the file right there. In my body, I'm just going to put an h1 and put my index page. So looking down at the bottom part of my screen, I am not seeing my little button that's supposed to be there for my live share. There's some kind of a problem with this extension, I think. I mean, not my live share, but my live server. Not 100% sure why I don't see that. It says it's enabled globally, but let me go and save this page so that we don't lose anything. Let me see if I can maybe hit F1. Live server, open with live server. Let's try the open with live server. Maybe that'll kick it off. Yeah, it did. It started here. Normally there's something here that says live server you can just click, but apparently that didn't work. So let me, so that we can, I'm going to click this folder icon and unmaximize this and snap it to the left side. And then I'm going to bring this one and snap it over here. All right, so now I can make changes here, and if I do Control S to save, it instantly updates and refreshes my browser. So really cool way to kind of do what we were doing in CodePen. First thing I want to do is I want to load up Bootstrap because I want to take our CodePen code, and there's a link for that in the description. And I'm going to replace this H1 with the CodePen stuff. And I'm going to remove some comments that I have in there. And we're going to remove all this, and I'm going to explain how all this works. So the problem here is that this is not laid out in rows and columns in a grid because we don't have Bootstrap loaded, and without Bootstrap, the web server doesn't understand the classes that are here. There's no row or container defined in my index CSS. And so they don't exist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up something called a Bootstrap Cdn. And a CDN is just a server. Here's the official CDN Bootstrap at bootstrapcdn.com. And this is just a server that hosts all the Bootstrap files that we can refer to. So in order to use Bootstrap, we have a CSS and a JavaScript. Those are the two we need. So if you just need the URL of the CSS, you can just click this to copy, but we want to click this little down arrow. We want to copy this HTML link line. And so I'll just click it and it says copied text to clipboard, and I'm just going to go right above my style sheet, and I'm going to paste. So that puts in the CDN, and then we're going to do the same thing for the JavaScript. I'm going to expand that one and click its HTML, and that's going to go right before the closing body tag. Okay. And next thing I want to do is make sure that my formatting is right. So I'm going to hit F1 and type format document with, and I'm going to have it use the HTML language features. And now it kind of prettied that up. If I go back to my page and hit save, now it loads up all of the Bootstrap stuff. So what we're going for here is we want rows and columns, and we want to specify how many of these go across, and we want to specify how many columns it displays depending on the device size. So right now, I think we're in like a medium size because I'm only on half the screen here. So it's kind of a medium thing. So the way this works is if you just do row calls 1, then it'll put everything in one column. If I want 2 columns, I can tell it save and put it in 2 columns, and then any columns after that just put to the next row after you hit 2. And 3 and so on. Let's say I normally want 3. And I want to also tell it row calls medium 4. So what that tells this thing is I want to span 4 columns for any device that is size medium or larger. So if I make this thing bigger by shrinking this one, so it's still only 4 columns. If I want large row calls LG to be 4, but then I want medium to be 3 because my display is smaller on medium, so I might not have as much width. So right now, I'm wide enough where the media query that it's doing behind the scenes in CSS is telling it, hey, you're in the breakpoint of large. So large can go 4. But as soon as we get small enough where we hit the medium size, it's now going to jump down to 3. So we're still big enough for 4. We're getting close, though. And there it jumped to 3. And then if we go extra large, which would probably be the whole width here, we're still at 4. We could put in one for extra large. And I like to do it smallest to largest now that I'm refreshed with my understanding, because that kind of reads that like, hey, if I'm not fitting any of these size breaks, then it's some device that I'm not defining. Go ahead and just try 3. But if it falls under small, we'll go 2. Then if we go a little bigger, we can go 3, and then large, and anything above that will go 4. So if I go back to large, which is 4, I can get down to a medium size, which is 3. If I go down smaller yet, and there's no room, it should go, there it goes. I don't know why it was doing that. But you can see it is working, right? So I changed the default to 1, where if you don't know what size it is, maybe it's really, maybe you're looking at it on a watch. So probably best off to make that one the smallest. And then once we get to the small size, we jump to 2 columns, and then 3, and then anything bigger than that stays at 4. And we could put an XL5, and that would probably go to 5 first. And if we go all the way wide, there we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can go from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1. And that's how we would size it for different devices. Let's throw the card problem that we had in there from the last episode. I'm just going to go to the Bootstrap site. And we'll go to the documents and components and card. And I'm just going to copy the HTML to build this card. I don't have this image cap. Their image that they're giving me just has ... in the source, so that's not going to work. But I'm going to go ahead and paste over the word column with an actual card in each column. I'm going to format. Okay. So if I save now, I have cards. Now I got broken images because of those images I just pointed out. So I'm just going to highlight the image line, hit Control F, expand this to be a search and replace, and just replace them all with nothing. So just nuke those lines. That will clean these up a little. You can see that we're having that problem we had yesterday already, where once we get to a certain amount of space across, we're cutting off the cards. So the first fix for that is because we're using all different styles here, and we're using like a fluid layout where it jumps from size to size. We're not supposed to use container at that point. We're supposed to use container fluid because it's a fluid changing design. So once I do that, it adds some rules there. So then the next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of these borders that are around the cards. We don't need those. So I'm going to search for that and replace without border and replace all. So that'll help some of that. Looks like we also need some kind of a bottom margin here. And if I do it on the column, that works. So let's just replace all of the class equal quote call quote and add the MB2 inside the quotes. And we will save that. So now we've got those. The other thing that I notice is these cards are not centered. So we want to actually center these cards. And in order to center the card, they're inside a column. So the best way to center something that has margins built in is to use the margin left and margin right auto. Bootstrap has a built-in helper for that. So if we go into the card, we can just type mx-auto, and I'm just going to put a border around it as well, just to show you when I click save. And we can't see the border because the card already has a border. Never mind. Forget about the border. But you can see that this card now is centered inside the column. So we pretty much want to take every class that just has card in it currently, and we want to add MX Auto to that. So I'll just do a little search and replace to add them. Hit save, and now we are centered. So now you can see that we are looking pretty good. So I would just keep those at 3. And I can even delete the bigger because it'll now be medium and anything above. And so that looks nice enough for me for this example. But anyway, I wanted to share that with you because I really didn't have a clear understanding of how these worked yesterday, and I am better now. All right, well, hopefully that clears things up. I know it did for me. I really don't like leaving things unknown like that, and there was some weird editing that went on to kind of get the message basically across, but I think you may have realized that I was not seeing what I was really expecting, so I'm kind of glad that I took some time and played around with it and got to the bottom of how it actually works. So now we're pros, right? Awesome. All right, well, play around with it and see if you can create some layouts with some items that flow across a page, and maybe you can pull them up on some different devices and stuff like that. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next episode.